The Itachi Pursuit Arc is a pretty paradoxical arc in the Naruto series because most people don't even talk about it very often and don't really remember it, but when you ask about them, what do you think about the Itachi Pursuit Arc, they're gonna say, well yeah, it was pretty good. And this is not the only reason why it's paradoxical, because it has some really amazing things in it, but also some pretty bad ones. It has one of the best fights in the series in Sasuke versus Deidara, but also one of the most disappointing wasted opportunities in the whole Naruto series, which I like to call the fatal flaw of the Itachi Pursuit Arc. So let's take a look a little bit more in depth into this arc and decide whether or not it's a good or a bad one overall. The Itachi Pursuit Arc begins in chapter 343 and ends at chapter 367, which means it's 24 chapters long, not exactly the longest chapter in Naruto at all. But even though it's pretty short, a lot of stuff happens in it. It starts right after the Akatsuki suppression arc, after Kakuzu and Hidan are dealt with, and it begins with Sasuke quote-unquote killing and then absorbing Orochimaru. This is already a pretty interesting start for the arc, setting up very interesting things to come. Oh, okay, so Sasuke is going by himself now, he's all on his own, and Orochimaru is dead, and Sasuke has Orochimaru's powers. This is something pretty cool to start the arc with. I know some people don't like the fight because Orochimaru was destroyed very easily, but I really enjoy how that happened. It's just that after Orochimaru is revived in the war, the things get bad. But anyways, the arc starts very strong, and then Sasuke goes to gather his team. Three pretty important characters for this arc, and for the series in general, were then introduced and developed a little bit. So we get to Karin and Jugo, respectively, as Sasuke gathers Team Hebi. And if I'm being honest, I was never a fan of those three characters. I always thought them a little bit one-note and kind of annoying, especially Karin. Jugo is a very tropey character, a gentle giant with a psychotic tendency, and so he gets to the guy, oh, I don't really care about stuff very much. They are pretty one-dimensional, and unfortunately they kind of keep that way until the end of the series. I mean, in the arc, after Karin was stabbed by Sasuke in the heart because Sasuke wanted to kill Danzo behind her, she was still in love with the guy for some reason. So she literally had no character development, and Jugo and Sugetsu had no character development either. But for this particular arc, the way they start off isn't bad. Obviously, you're not going to develop the character the first chapter they're introduced, or even in the first arc that they are introduced, except for when the character is going to die in the very same arc when he or she is introduced, which is not the best thing for you to go about characters. Now, it can work sometimes depending on the type of story you want to tell, like in Chio's case. But obviously this isn't Jugo Sugetsu Karin's case, because they survived the arc, and they were supposed to continue in the story, get some development later on, and unfortunately they just didn't. But this is not the fault of this particular arc, even though more things could have been done about them, and I'm gonna get into that later. So Sasuke gathers his team in preparation to go after Itachi. And at the same time, Naruto and the Leaf Village finds out that Orochimaru is quote-unquote dead. And Sasuke is not coming back to the village because he wants to kill Itachi, so Naruto's like, oh, we have to go after Sasuke, he was gonna die, and I want Sasuke back, and we should get Sasuke back. So yeah, Tsunade says, we have to go after Itachi because Sasuke is going after Itachi, so if we go after him, we find Sasuke, and we find Itachi because he's a pretty dangerous guy. Obviously, they didn't know the whole truth about Itachi, because otherwise they wouldn't worry about this, but nobody really did know the whole truth about him except for Danzo and the elders, and Obito of course. And both the Leaf Village and Team Hebi go after Itachi at the same time. However, Deidara is also really pissed at Sasuke because Sasuke quote-unquote killed Orochimaru, and Deidara wanted to kill Orochimaru himself. So he tracks Sasuke down and engages him. At the same time, Naruto, Yamato, and Hinata encounter Kabuto, and we get the first glimpse of Kabuto being consumed by the Orochimaru chakra. Kabuto gives them a notebook with intel on the Akatsuki, but that doesn't really pay off too much because the characters that they're gonna find in the future are not even in the book anymore. Like Nagato and Obito are not there, so it doesn't really matter, but Kabuto's like trying to, take care of the Akatsuki for me because I have some plans of my own, and he just leaves. But obviously the big fight of this arc, and really the only real fight of this arc, is Sasuke versus Deidara. And I guess you could say Tobito helped Deidara a lot too. And this is one of the best fights in the entire series. The strategy Sasuke used to beat Deidara, the sheer spectacle and the character development was great. I know some people don't like this fight because they say Sasuke has quote-unquote plot armor, but I have debunked this several times in videos already. He had enough chakra to reverse summon himself out of there because his Sharingan was activated a second before he did so. And also, Orochimaru wasn't exploding out of him because he was out of chakra, just like Orochimaru does when Sasuke is fighting against Itachi. And remember that Sasuke caught Deidara from behind with a punch, but he didn't want to land a finishing blow on Deidara because he wanted to know Itachi's location. So, if Sasuke wanted to kill Deidara at that point of the story, he could have with a kunai to the heart, for example. So just because a character that you don't particularly like won the fight doesn't mean he has plot armor. Anyway, that's an amazing fight, one of the best in the shonen genre and in the Naruto series. After that, we get some tense moments where we don't know exactly if Sasuke survived or not. And we also get some foreshadowing about Itachi's real intentions. When he's on the rain and he contemplates Sasuke's possible death, and Kisame even says, "Oh, it kinda looks like you're crying from up here." But then Sasuke survives, and the Leaf Village re-engages with their pursuit. After that, we get one of the coolest scenes in the entire series, which is when Tobi revealed himself to be quote-unquote Madara Uchiha to Pain and Konan. That just such a cool scene. We all thought Tobi was dead because of the C0 explosion, but no! He somehow survived, and he is Madara, and he has a Sharingan that's crazy. Also, just the presentation with the lightning on the background is great. After that, Itachi actually encounters Naruto, and he passes his quote-unquote power to Naruto by putting a crow into his mouth and stomach so that he could use Shisui's Kodomatsu Kami in the future. Obviously, Itachi doesn't tell him that, but it was all in Itachi's plan. The cool thing is that we don't know what Itachi did exactly during the arc itself, because the scene cuts away from what Itachi does, and we only get a flashback later on after we already know the truth about Itachi, when Itachi makes Naruto swallow that crow. So we wouldn't get spoiled about Itachi's big revelation there. And after that, Sasuke encounters Itachi in the cave. It wasn't the real Itachi, it was just a genjutsu, but then he gets Itachi's location. And this is where the arc ends. And the Jiraiya the Gallant arc starts, the arc where Jiraiya fights against Pain and stuff. Now obviously the climax of the arc is the Sasuke versus Deidara fight. What comes after that is Fallen Action, but the arc itself works very well in the series. It keeps you excited. It has some pretty interesting revelations, such as Tobi being Madara, and also one of the best fights in the series. Now, yeah, you could say it's a pretty transitional arc, because the big stuff is about to happen right after it, like Pain versus Jiraiya, Itachi versus Sasuke, and even Pain's invasion to the Leaf Village, but the arc itself is definitely not bad. And transitional arcs like that are also important to establish the story and the plot, and also to do some pretty interesting world building if you have time. So what was that fatal flaw that I was talking about at the beginning of the video regarding this arc? I'm saying it's a pretty damn good arc, but it has a fatal flaw. What gives? Well, you see, this arc is a spiritual successor to the Sasuke Retrieval Arc, the last arc of Naruto Part 1, and the best arc of the series. And listen, my opinion, but my opinion is right. It has a pretty similar premise. A team of ninjas from the Leaf Village have to go after Sasuke, and then this time, Itachi as well, but they're also going after Sasuke. After all, they are tracking Sasuke's scent and going after him in the arc. Even though the name of the arc is the Itachi Pursuit Arc, they are definitely pursuing Sasuke as well. Because if you remember correctly, the reason as to why they're going after Itachi is so that they can find Sasuke in the process. And obviously, back in part 1 in the Sasuke Retrieval Arc, we had a team going after Sasuke after he deserted the Leaf Village. There are two arcs very similar in premise, and people definitely notice this. They don't shy away from even explaining, yeah, this is a pretty similar arc when we get the jokes about Shino not having gone in the previous one, and now Shino is going because people call him for it. Unfortunately, Shino's character in Naruto Shippuden is reduced to jokes, and this is one of them. Oh, Shino didn't get to go in the Sasuke Retrieval Arc, so he is sulking about it. But the team in this situation is gonna be Team Kakashi with Yamato, as well as Shino, Hinata, and Kiba. And this is something quite intelligent that Kishimoto was doing in the beginning to the middle of Naruto Shippuden. The missions that Team Kakashi was going on were accompanied by other teams from the Konoha 12. In the Kazekage Rescue mission, we got Team Guy. In the Akatsuki Suppression Arc, we got Team Asuma. And now, in the Itachi Pursuit Arc, we get Team Kurenai, without Kurenai because she's pregnant, so she can't really go. So that's really nice. Oh, finally, a chance for us to have some development with Hinata and Naruto because they're supposed to end up together, you know, and have children and stuff. and also Kiba and Shino, which didn't really have anything to do in Naruto Shippuden so far, and at least Shino was very interesting in Naruto Part 1. Some people like Kiba too. I don't really like Kiba very much, but it's fine. You know, we can have Kiba too. Now the problem is how Kishimoto implements those teams. And to be honest, this is not a problem exclusive to this arc, because in the Kazekage Rescue arc, for example, Team Guy barely did anything. The only person in his team that got something to do was Guy himself with a Kisame fight, which was a Kisame body double, but it's fine. Rock Lee, Neji, and Tenten, though, they had nothing to do the entire arc, which was pretty wasteful. And then when we get to the Akatsuki Suppression arc, the only members of Asuma's team that get any development are Asuma, because, I mean, he died, and then Shikamaru. I mean, Shikamaru's development was pretty damn amazing in that arc, but Ino and Choji, they had pretty much nothing going on. And the exact same thing happens here, except that it's worse because, well, at least in those two arcs before, one or two other characters had some development and some interesting things going on, but in this arc, Team Kurenai has nothing to do! They have no development, they have no interesting interactions with anyone, they're just kinda there. And this is not even exclusive to Kurenai's team in this very arc, because Sakura, Yamato, and Sai, they don't have anything to do either. And let's be real, those are three characters that desperately needed things to do in character development in the series. I mean, Sakura had an amazing fight with Sasori in the beginning of Naruto Shippuden, and then she just didn't do anything else in the story, had no development anymore. And also Yamato and Sai, they never do anything in the story. They're characters that you're supposed to care about because they're on Kakashi's team, and they were introduced in the Tenchi Bridge arc as these two very important new characters in the story, but they never do anything. They're two quote-unquote important characters in a shonen series, in a battle shonen, that have no 1v1 battles the entire story. And they're going in this arc here, in this mission to pursue Itachi, and you're like, okay, they're finally gonna get something to do, and they don't. I mean, Kakashi was coordinating the team, and Kakashi's got development in pretty much every single arc he's in, so it's fine if you don't use Kakashi all that much in this particular situation. But even Naruto doesn't get much to do in this arc. Like, most of the development that happens to Naruto in this mission to pursue Itachi happens after the arc, in the fated battle between brothers arc, which is after the Jiraiya the Gallon arc. So the only things that happen with Naruto in the Itachi Pursuit arc is that he gets a notebook from Kabuto and he swaps fists with Kabuto for a couple of panels. But I mean, that's okay too, because Naruto is the main character and he gets development in pretty much every single arc of the story. But why would you put so many different side characters in this mission if you're not gonna use them for anything at all? If you compare this arc to its predecessor, the Sasuke Retrieval Arc, you can see the glaring difference between the development that the side characters got. Every single character that went on that mission to retrieve Sasuke had something interesting to do, character development, and then obviously Naruto versus Sasuke in the Valley of the End, which is the best fight in the series. And when the pursuit starts and you realize, okay, this is a sequel to the Sasuke Retrieval Arc, you get really excited because now two of the characters that didn't get to go last time, Hinata and Shino, are going. So, oh, okay, so this is, you know, making up for the time that didn't go. And those are two characters that desperately need some development. Shino didn't do anything in Naruto Shippuden, and he didn't do a lot in Naruto Part 1, but the things he did were amazing. And Hinata is supposed to, you know, end up with Naruto, so yeah, nice. Those two characters are going. We're gonna get some interesting Yamato and Sai stuff as well. Everything's gonna work out fine, just like it did back in the Sasuke Retrieval Arc. Except that it doesn't? I mean, sure, Hinata is assigned to be in Naruto's squadron with Yamato in this mission, so you're like, okay, at least they're going to interact. But their interactions are just very basic utilitarian interactions, like, oh yeah, use the Byakugan. Oh, I can see that Kabuto has chakra in him, weird chakra, Orochimaru's consuming the guy. They never talk about anything else, about their feelings or about other stuff than the mission they're on. We don't even get one of those cute romantic moments where Naruto's clueless and he's like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed or whatever. Nothing at all. Kakashi puts them on the same team, but nothing happens because of it. And the most insane thing is that the pursuit ends in one chapter. In the Itachi Pursuit Arc. In chapter 354, they're leaving the village and Team Hebi is heading towards Itachi's position as well. In chapter 355, they look for Team Hebi and Sasuke by tracking their scents, but then Deidara finds Sasuke and Naruto finds Kabuto, and that's it. That's the arc. That's the entire pursuit. Now, sure, the fight's amazing after that, but there was no build-up for it. Now, of course, that technically the pursuit continues after the Itachi Pursuit Arc, because they eventually go after Sasuke when he is fighting against Itachi, but Toby stops them. But you just don't get the feeling that this arc had the importance it was supposed to, because the pursuit was so minute. I was fully expecting that every single member of the Leaf team would have a fight, or at least something very difficult and interesting for them to do that would develop their characters at the same time as giving you a pretty interesting scene. Exactly how the Sasuke Retrieval Arc was. But Deidara finds Sasuke in a single chapter, and the pursuit ends there. And then you can even say, well, but they didn't really have anybody else to fight, because there were 8 people in the Leaf Village team, and definitely not as many enemies for them to engage. But no, this is not true. Yeah, sure, they couldn't really engage Deidara because he was gonna fight Sasuke, and Toby's a wild card, so yeah, sure, don't give a Toby fight to any of them, it's fine. But then you have Kabuto for one, and he could have done something much more interesting. Just showing up and tossing a notebook on the ground is not exactly the most interesting thing in the world for him to do, especially because he's developing his new Orochimaru powers, so show those things happening, the Orochimaru powers or something. Can I please see Hinata do anything useful in this story? And also Yamato, please, I'm begging you. And then we also have the 3 members of Team Hebi, Karin, Suigetsu, and Jugo, and they're all looking for information on Itachi around those villages that they're looking for. And Sakura and Karin even cross paths, and they don't do anything. They just keep walking. Now, if that's a tease, I don't know what is, because they literally walk shoulder to shoulder against each other, and Sakura's dogs were sniffing Sasuke's scent. And when this girl passes by Sakura, they say, oh, it's getting away from us. Why wouldn't Sakura think, oh, maybe Sasuke's using the transformation jutsu, or maybe it's Sasuke's scent on somebody else? And, you know, investigate, look around. We also have Suigetsu and Jugo that barely do anything in the entire story, and this is a perfect opportunity to give them something to do. And then some character like, I don't know, Shino or Sai that also don't do anything else in Naruto Shippuden could fight against them. Maybe you could do a 2v2, imagine Shino and Sai versus Suigetsu and Jugo while Sakura is fighting Karin, whatever. Or do 3 1v1s, or you don't even have to make them fight, but make them chase each other or do something interesting. It's so weird because Kishimoto introduces Team Hebi, the 3 characters that are following Sasuke now. He develops them a little bit, he shows they're interacting with each other, and then they don't do much at all in the arc. They're just there to support Sasuke, which sure, it's their purpose in the story. It's why Sasuke gathered them in the first place, but they're also characters, they also need some development. Show how powerful they are, show how interesting they can be as characters as they fight against the Leaf Ninjas. Just like it happened with the Sound 4 against the Genins of the Leaf Village back in Naruto Part 1. But no, the entire pursuit ends in a chapter. Now, this probably happened because Kishimoto is a very fast-paced writer, and I have the feeling, this is not information, this is just my guess, that the editors told him, yeah, let's just go ahead and go to the Deidara versus Sasuke fight and move on, because we have to get to the important stuff, which is more exciting and people are gonna be more eager to see, like Jiraiya versus Pain and Sasuke versus Itachi. Obviously, Sasuke versus Itachi is a fight that's been foreshadowed for ages now, and everybody wanted to see how that would unfold. So we just have to get to the Sasuke fight against Deidara soon because it's the high point of the arc, it's the climax of the arc, and having too much stuff in between would just bug the pacing. But this is not necessarily true. The pacing is not gonna tank if what you're doing is interesting, if there are interesting fights, interesting developments. Nobody's gonna think the story is boring or slow if what they're reading or watching is engaging. Just like the Sasuke Retrieval Arc was. Were you bored when you were watching Neji versus Kiromaru, for example? Or Shikamaru versus Tayuya? Or Rock Lee versus Kimimaru? Or Gaara versus Kimimaru? Or even Kiba versus Sakuan? Or even Choji versus Jirobo? None of those fights were extremely long, but they were all very cool and interesting, and they developed the characters. Choji vs. Jirobe, for example, was barely a chapter long, but it was extremely important for Choji's character, and even though it was a pretty short fight, it sticks with you because it was very engaging and remarkable back in the day. And even though everyone was anticipating the final confrontation between Naruto and Sasuke, well, the final confrontation in part 1 at least, everyone was eager to see them fighting for real this time because we just got that tease on the hospital rooftop that Kakashi stopped. We didn't care that the story was a little bit longer than, oh, okay, we just get there to the Valley of the End and fight, because the fights happening in the middle of it made sense and were very engaging. As a matter of fact, the difficulty that the Leaf team faced when trying to reach Sasuke made the arc even better, and made the situation that Naruto and Sasuke found themselves even more exciting. Because if Naruto had reached Sasuke's position and fought him there after like, what, 2-3 chapters, without much difficulty and without having faced a lot of adversity, then the fight would definitely not have felt as climactic and epic as he did. And the same thing applies here as well. The climactic fight between Itachi and Sasuke would have felt even more epic if it had been more difficult to get to that point. It would have felt more earned. And I even think that the preparation for the Sasuke vs. Deidara fight should have been a little bit longer too. We should have gotten some development between Deidara and Itachi before Deidara clashed against Sasuke, establishing beforehand the hatred towards the Sharingan and the Uchiha clan, and you know, a little bit more of Deidara's backstory perhaps. Sure, what we got in the middle of the fight was definitely amazing, but it wouldn't have hurt to develop Deidara just a little bit more before he died. Maybe I'm biased when I say this because Deidara's my favorite Akatsuki member, but anyways, the main point is that this arc should have developed the side characters way more than it did, and it had the perfect chance for that because several side characters that had no development were joining the team of the Leaf Village, and we had 3 new side characters that were underdeveloped because they had just been introduced that were on a collision course with that Leaf team, so it's the perfect situation. But now it doesn't happen, and then those characters are not developed again at all. Except for Sakura, I guess you could say she was a little bit more developed, but she was also underdeveloped, all things considered. So yes, this arc is pretty good. I love Hebi Sasuke. He's the coolest character in fiction, period. Him making his team is very interesting. It builds up the world a little bit more than your average arc, because yeah, Naruto's world building is one of its weakest aspects. But this arc does a better job than most, and we had this amazing setup that wasn't really used because the side characters got nothing to do. It's infuriating. The side characters, they got so many interesting things to do, so much character development back in Naruto Part 1 with the Chunin exams, and then with the Sasuke Retrieval Arc. Pretty much all of them were not really developed anymore in Naruto Shippuden, and even characters like Yamato and Sai that were introduced in Naruto Shippuden were also not developed. So this arc should have spent a little bit longer than one single chapter in the pursuit of the Itachi Pursuit Arc. So yeah, it's its fatal flaw, but it's still a pretty good arc. I mean, the Deidara vs. Sasuke fight, peak fiction. I just wish we got more development to Shino and other characters. But anyways, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and please like this video. It helps me out with the algorithm. And if you want to see how I would personally fix those issues with the arc, you can watch my Rewriting Naruto series. You can either start from the beginning right here, or just watch the Itachi Pursuit Arc. Thank you so much for watching, guys.